what is artificial intelligence? I mean, like, what is it? Usually when people hear the word AI, what comes into their minds is something that looks like the Terminator, right? You probably think of the Terminator, or sometimes some people usually think of the agents from the Matrix. Now this is purely based on science fiction, of course, and some people even think about those cliche stock photos that look something like this. You know, that bluish background with a sentient-looking, clean humanoid object in the front. But what if I were to tell you that AI is basically just alchemy? You know that magic potion making with ingredients and, you know, just trial and error? Well, back in the day, you know, the king will have probably told you to make gold, for example, and you would have tried everything, mix a few ingredients up, and hopefully through trial and error, in the end, you were able to make gold. If not, you probably got your head chopped off, right? Now, essentially, this whole process in alchemy is the same in AI, but you probably won't get your head chopped off if you fail. Now, what is AI? I mean, I still did not answer that question, right? Well, there are many cliche ways to explain how AI works or what it actually is, but the most simplest example is, think of a baby, all right? So it's a small, like a human that doesn't know anything, just trying to make a sense of this world. What might a baby do when it sees fire, right? It touches fire, it might take his hand off. So it will know not to touch fire again because it pains him, right? So he's kind of able to correlate the warmth or the hotness of fire with the pain, so he knows not to touch it again. So through trial and error and real life experiences, he knows not to touch fire. Well, the next time the baby sees something similar, like lava, for example, he will know not to touch it, maybe because it's also red or maybe it's also hot. So the baby kind of predicted, in a way, not to touch lava based off of his previous experience with fire. Now, what might this baby do if it sees a 1971 bright red Corvette? Well, he might think of the fire, and he might also think and predict, in a way, not to touch it as well. Of course, he predicted wrong here, but of course nothing is perfect. So essentially, what this baby is doing here is the same thing AI is doing. Learning through real life examples or learning through past experiences to be able to predict what it should do when it's presented with something it hasn't seen before. So how might we, push this learning ability into an actual machine? Well, take a look at a neural network, for example. Right? There's an input, there's an output, and there's all this junk in between. Well, usually people say that you need heavy math or some really complex math to understand what is going on in the neural network. Just forget about it and simplify it down into an input and an output. So we are trying to model the learning, how a baby learns into a machine through a neural network. Now, in most AI classes, when you're taking a course and when you're learning about neural networks, usually they teach you to classify handwritten digits. So if you have a handwritten digit of 0, for example, you want to be able to tell that that is the handwritten digit 0. If you have 1, you want to say it's 1, and if you have 2, you want to say it's 2, and so forth. So given handwritten digits, you want to know what actual digit it is through a machine. So how might we make a machine learn this through a neural network? Well, we might give as the input the image of the handwritten digit, and as output we tell the computer that this is the digit 0. We can do the same thing with 3, or we can do so far, so. And we can also give it more data as well. So the more different handwriting styles we give the AI, and we tell the corresponding output, the AI or the machine is able to learn just like the baby how it should correlate this. So the next time the AI is presented with something new, just as this weirdly written 4 here, the AI is able to tell us that this is the handwritten digit 4. So through trial and error, just like that baby, the AI is able to learn through a neural network, through data, to be able to classify handwritten digits to exactly what digit it actually is. But what might happen when we give the AI this weirdly written 9, for example? He might, just like that baby classifying that red Corvette and not touching it, the AI might say that this isn't 5, of course nothing is perfect, and just like that baby, the AI might predict wrongly here. So what might we do to fix this? Well, remember all that junk in between in the neural network? we might go ahead and configure it differently. Like, you don't have to worry about how we actually configure it. We could change the configuration up, and through trial and error, we could feed all this data back into the neural network and train it, or make it learn, in a way, one more time. And when we test it in a real-world case, we might get a 50% accuracy, for example. So every 2 digits that we give is able to classify one correctly and classify one wrong. So what might we do to fix this again? Well, we could configure it one more time, just through trial and error, and then test it, feed all that data in, make it learn, and test it again. Well, this time we get a 70% accuracy. You can just, you can imagine what's going to happen in the next slide. Of course, we're going to change it again, change the neural network, and then test, give all that data again, and try it in a real-world case. We might get a 90% accuracy. Now, 90% accuracy might not seem well, but in the world of AI, it is fairly efficient. If you get something more than 90%, it's probably wrong. So 90% is very accurate. So now, through trial and error of making this AI learn, and by configuring in different ways, we're able to actually classify this 9 correctly. And another real-world case where this neural network, or this learning ability of machines are used is in targeted advertisement, for example. How might the learning step of this look like? Well, you have the data as input, so the websites you browse, how long you stay on the website for, or what kind of website you browse. And the output will be the classification of the ad to show you, like what kind of an ad or which exact ad should be shown. So you could imagine training this AI through trial and error and teaching it the exact output that it should give or the exact ad that should be shown. And this is exactly why when you search for dog toys, or when you mostly search something related to dogs, you get an advertisement for dog, for example. So essentially what AI is just trial and error and learning just like baby. And the next time you hear AI, just remember those simple trial and error methods used in alchemy. Thank you.